Gao Zhilei worked as a chief director at an IT company. His job paid well, and his family lived comfortably in a large house with his wife, daughter, and parents. Although Lei once wanted to move to a smaller place, his father refused to live apart, so they stayed together. His wife, Xiaonei, had been by his side for 15 years, and they shared a daughter, Jianei, who was the joy of their lives. One morning, Lei hurried to work as usual. Beijing streets were crowded and noisy, filled with people rushing through the city. After arriving at the office, he checked in and began coordinating with his team on an ongoing project. For a while, everything went smoothly. Then, during his break, Lei was suddenly called by the company executives. Without warning, they informed him he was being terminated. The reason was simple. He was no longer young, and his position cost the company too much. They decided to replace him with a younger assistant. The news hit him hard. For 11 years, Lei had devoted himself to the company, working late, taking extra hours, and giving up family time. Yet none of it mattered. Once the boss said you're fired, he had no choice but to leave. His thoughts spiraled as he walked out of the building, burdened by mortgage payments, school fees, and daily expenses that now felt impossible to bear. As he stepped outside into the cold morning crowd, the world moved on without him. This is Upstream. In the following weeks, Lei applied to every company he could find. Each time, he faced rejection because of his age. At home, the tension grew. When his father learned about his unemployment, he reacted harshly. He questioned how the family would survive and reminded Lei of his promise to keep Xiaonei comfortable. Lei said nothing. He felt too defeated to defend himself. Soon after, things got worse. A scammer tricked Lei into paying 150,000 yuan as a job deposit, then disappeared. That money had been his severance pay, his last hope. When Lei tracked him down and demanded a refund, the man refused. Lei realized that hardship had now become part of his life. Not long after, Xiaonei told him that his father had fallen ill. Lei rushed to the hospital, only to be met with another blow. The treatment costs were far higher than he expected, and the hospital demanded full payment before proceeding. He tried to negotiate but failed. Up to that moment, Xiaonei still didn't know he had been fired. When she finally found out, her anger was mixed with disappointment. She wasn't upset because he lost his job, but because he had kept it from her. To her, a marriage meant sharing burdens, not hiding them. Lei apologized quietly. He never wanted her to suffer, yet his silence had caused more pain than he intended. From that day forward, they decided to face everything together. Lei no longer carried his struggles alone. The next morning, while searching for job openings, Lei noticed a young man live streaming on TikTok. The man claimed to earn 12,700 yuan per month. Curious, Lei approached him and learned his name was Dehei. Dehei said he worked as a food delivery courier and that Lei could join by scanning the barcode on the back of his motorcycle. Without much thought, Lei followed the instruction and went to the registration site, where hundreds of couriers were preparing for their shifts. The field manager, Mr. Zhu, gathered everyone and reminded them that customers were the priority. Their job was to keep them satisfied while ensuring each order was delivered quickly and safely. When Lei asked to join, Mr. Zhu hesitated. He doubted Lei could handle the physical demands of the job, assuming he was an older man looking for easy work. Being a courier required endurance, patience, and consistency. Still, Lei insisted he was serious and willing to give his best effort. Lei's first day on the job was rough. He struggled with a fast pace and constant pressure. Many orders arrived late, sometimes because restaurants were busy, food was missing, or customers refused to answer their phones. Lei could only accept the situation quietly. As Mr. Zhu had said, customers were kings. No matter how unreasonable they were, he had to remain polite and professional. At home, Lei returned exhausted each night. It was the first time he had experienced such physical labor. Xiaonei noticed his fatigue and tried to help him relax, but seeing him so drained worried her. She encouraged him to keep searching for a better job, yet the market offered little hope. Lei admitted his income was far from enough to support the family, so his only choice was to keep improving and push himself each day. The next morning, Lei noticed that his performance rating had dropped. Determined to recover, he started working harder and taking more risks, often using shortcuts to deliver faster. Delays, traffic, and rude customers no longer slowed him down. He stayed focused, smiling through each challenge, driven by the thought of supporting his family and helping his father recover. Even so, fatigue eventually caught up with him. That night, his father was discharged from the hospital. What should have been a moment of relief quickly turned bitter when his father discovered Lei's new job. Disappointment turned to anger, and harsh words followed. To him, being a courier was a failure unworthy of a man with Lei's education. Lei had already applied to countless companies, hoping for another chance, but none had responded. The rejection, pressure, and lack of understanding from his family weighed heavily on him. Although Xiao Nei tried to comfort him, Lei had reached his breaking point. The exhaustion he carried finally erupted, and his frustration spilled out toward the people he cared about most. It was a moment of weakness he would carry with deep regret. Days passed, and despite his father's disapproval, Lei kept working. He had no other option. Being a courier was often seen as a low-status job, especially for someone with his education and executive background, but Lei no longer cared. As long as his family had food on the table, that was enough. Over time, his health began to decline. Lei had diabetes and needed regular insulin injections to control his blood sugar. Because he rarely rested, his condition worsened. Still, he refused to slow down. He kept pushing himself until one day, exhaustion caught up with him, and he collapsed while on duty. After that incident, something in his father changed. Watching Lei continue to work without complaint softened his heart. The old man felt deep regret for his earlier anger. Out of guilt, he even offered to stop his medical treatments, not wanting to burden his son any longer. He realized how much Lei had already sacrificed for the family. Apologies replaced criticism, and the distance between them slowly faded. Motivated by his father's change of heart, Lei became even more determined to improve. He began seeking advice from senior couriers, including one named Yen Tuo, known for his speed and experience. Yen Tuo explained that Lei's low income came from his poor performance score. To raise it, Lei needed to memorize faster routes and plan his deliveries more efficiently. Once his score improved, he would receive higher-paying orders. Yen Tuo also emphasized the importance of building relationships with restaurant partners. Helping them during busy hours made a difference. A few minutes of assistance could save time later. He also reminded Lei to always deliver with a smile, no matter how tired or frustrated he felt. Couriers were judged not only by speed but also by attitude, because in this line of work, the customer was always king. Following this advice, Lei gradually improved. His ranking rose, and customers began leaving positive reviews. His income increased as well. Drawing on his IT background, Lei started designing an app to make his delivery routes more efficient. He recorded every shortcut and route that Yen Tuo had taught him and planned to test the system soon. Before he could, his colleague Lao Kuo was involved in an accident during a delivery. Lei immediately took care of Lao Kuo's remaining orders and rushed to visit him at the hospital. Lao Kuo reassured him that such accidents were common in their job. The real pain, he said, was hearing his family cry from hunger. Later, Lei accompanied Lao Kuo home and was shocked to see the conditions he lived in. The small shack stood near a garbage dump, and inside was his sick child battling leukemia. For Lao Kuo, the accident meant little compared to his daughter's illness. He would keep working no matter what it took. Seeing this, Lei reminded him to be careful. Earning money was important, but if he lost his life, there would be no one left to care for his family. The words struck Lao Kuo deeply and stayed with him. The next day, Lei gathered all the couriers to share something new. He had developed a shortcut application designed to help them find the fastest routes to customers. The app was simple to use, and its automatic navigation quickly impressed everyone. Even Mr. Zhu was surprised by Lei's innovation. Soon, many couriers started using it, and their work became more efficient. Lei's own deliveries also became easier and faster. Despite its success, the app still had flaws. Some routes were incomplete, and only Yen Tuo knew the most efficient shortcuts. This created tension among the team. Frustration grew, and some couriers began mocking Yen Tuo, accusing him of keeping valuable information to himself. Everyone knew he kept a notebook filled with detailed routes and delivery notes, but he refused to share it. He stayed calm at first, ignoring the insults. However, when one courier mentioned his younger brother, Yen Tuo lost control, and a fight broke out. After the incident, Yen Tuo decided to resign. Lei felt a deep sense of loss watching one of his most dependable colleagues walk away, but he knew life had to continue. That evening, heavy rain poured over the city. While delivering orders, Lei saw his colleague Shi-Chi and her child standing under a shelter, soaked and shivering without raincoats. Without hesitation, he gave them his own. Exposed to the cold, Lei's body weakened, and exhaustion took over. He stopped to rest for a moment and accidentally fell asleep. Later, some friends woke him and asked him to come with them to meet someone. To his surprise, it was Yen Tuo. He was now helping his younger brother at a small shop. Yen Tuo explained that his brother had once been a courier too. They used to work as a team and were well known for their speed, until an accident left his brother with one leg and drained his college savings for treatment. Since then, Yen Tuo had devoted himself to supporting him. As they talked, Yen Tuo asked if Lei's app still had problems. He then handed Lei his route notebook, saying he wanted every courier to have the same chance to succeed. If missing routes were the obstacle, he hoped Lei could add them to the app so others could benefit and earn a better living. Lei accepted the notebook gratefully, knowing how much it meant. Later that night, on his way home, Lei noticed Xiaonei working at a beauty salon. The sight hit him hard. He felt as if he had failed to protect her from hardship. Lost in thought, he wasn't paying attention and crashed his motorcycle into a street cart. He had to pay compensation, losing all the savings he had built up for his father's medical bills. When he arrived home, Lei was overcome with emotion. He had bought a birthday cake for Xiaonei, but it had been ruined in the crash. He broke down, feeling like a failure as a husband, but Xiaonei refused to let him think that way. She reminded him that marriage was about facing challenges together, not bearing them alone. To her, Lei had already done everything a husband and father could do. She asked him to stop apologizing and to remember that they were in this struggle side by side. The next day, a representative from the bank visited Lei. They warned him that if he didn't pay the 2-month overdue mortgage, the house would be repossessed. Lei promised that he would make the payment by the end of the month, right before the year-end deadline. Around the same time, the courier company announced a special event. Mr. Zhu informed everyone that headquarters would award a bonus worth 10 times their monthly salary to whoever ranked number 1 by the end of the month. The news immediately reignited Lei's determination. He saw this as his last chance to secure his family's future. At that moment, Dehei held the top position. Since Yen Tuo had left, Dehei's performance had improved rapidly. The courier who had once insulted Yen Tuo was in second place, while Lei followed closely in third. As the month progressed, the competition grew fierce. Every delivery counted, and the rivalry between Lei and Dehei became the talk of the company. By the final days of December, the atmosphere was tense. The deadline was set for midnight. Lei and Dehei were tied in points, and one last delivery would decide the winner. As Lei rushed to complete his final order, disaster struck. He was involved in a serious accident. Despite his injuries, Lei refused to give up. Bleeding and in pain, he pushed himself to stand and kept moving. His only thought was to finish the delivery and win the prize that could change his family's life. Meanwhile, Dehei found himself trapped in an elevator, shouting for help. With his rival stuck, Lei saw a narrow chance to take the lead. He ignored the pain and pressed on, his determination burning brighter than ever. Lei finally reached the nightclub, the final delivery point. The noise and flashing lights disoriented him, and his vision blurred, but he kept going. Across the room, a man waved to him, signaling for the delivery. That small gesture gave Lei one last burst of strength. At exactly 11:59 p.m., the customer confirmed the order. Lei had made it. Through exhaustion and pain, he completed the delivery that would change his life. Weeks later, at the National Courier Award ceremony, Lei stood under the spotlight as he was named Best Courier of the Year. The host then revealed that his delivery app had caught the attention of company executives. They saw great potential in his design, and Lei's career as a courier was about to take a new direction. 5 years later, Lei lived in a modest apartment on the outskirts of Beijing. With the prize money, he had cleared all his debts, and his father had fully recovered. Lei now served as the director of software development at the courier company's headquarters. Life had come full circle, and in many ways, it was better than before. Yet, despite his success, Lei stayed grounded. The struggles he had endured reminded him never to lose humility. For him, true success was not the title or the money, but the peace and happiness of his family. The end. So the moral of the story is, don't let life fire you before you fire up yourself. Even if you crash your scooter, get scammed and your dad yells at you, keep grinding, stay humble, and remember, Wi-Fi can go down, but determination shouldn't.